Hey folks, so is bell curve bunk? I've been trying to answer this question for some time and I have arrived at some conclusions which I want to share with you. Now, what is bell curve to begin with? Okay, and why do we need it? A bell curve is also called as a normalized curve and is used in most of the large organizations to categorize people into three categories. So, there will be a category of people who are considered most, which is majority of the people, which is your average population. If you take any group of people, and categorize them, for example, if you take X number of people, let's say 10 people randomly, ask them to stand in the order of their height, you would find that a majority of them would have the same height. Some of them would be shorter than the rest of the group, and some of them will be taller than the rest of the group. So basically, you will be getting a curve which is very similar to what you're seeing here. And this curve is scientifically called a bell curve. Okay, it's also called a normalized curve in the statistical world. And the relevance of this bell curve is primarily that it helps large companies like IBM's and Infosys and Microsofts of the world to categorize their staff into uh, groups. And why do they do that? They do it because they can then go ahead and call them high performers, low performers, and average performers. And thus they can give higher incentives and higher reward to a high performer versus a lower reward and a lower incentive to a low performer. So what's wrong with this curve? Well, I think this curve is having no relevance in today's world. In today's complexity, there is no value of this particular curve. And let me explain what I mean by that. So, what this curve tries to do is to take all these set of people, with different colors and different nationalities and different regional perspectives, and make them into clones of each other because they are all measured on the same ground. And this is great for large companies because it helps them sort of categorize large population into one group. And it's very easy for them. But it's really unfair for the folks who are in various age groups and who are in various capacities to contribute to an organization. Because eventually all of this leads to an individual leaving the organization and an individual staying in the organization or an individual getting a higher increase than the other. So this is what it leads to, right? So this is what the organizations do. They categorize individuals in the same group, and if there is a black sheep or a red sheep in this case, they simply take out that person from the group and either move him or put him in the underperformance bucket. And I think in today's world, I say this because today the world has turned into a global global world village. There is connectivity across people, forums. Uh, somebody working in the US is connected with somebody in UK, in India, and if Donald Trump, for example, becomes the prime minister or the president of US, it impacts a country in China or it impacts Russia. So it's all now very complex. Everything is connected in this world today, and thus a simple model of categorizing everybody in the region based on uh, the performance of that particular model is not working. Second thing is that the world is moving at different paces. Now, this is the annual rate of GDP growth of UK. This data says that, and I would not want you to look at the year, it's 2013 and we are in 2017. But what I want you to understand is that UK is growing at a much slower pace. Say, for example, if you compare it to an India, which is growing at a much rapid pace, or a United States, which is probably in the ballpark of UK. So an individual who is staying in UK will not have to face challenges which an individual will have to face in India, for example, because with growth comes inflation, inflation increases cost of living. So if you are in the UK, perhaps you are paying the same pound for pound for a loaf of bread over the last 2 years or 3 years. But if you are in India, for that same loaf of bread, you are paying more money over a period of 2, 3, or 4 years, which means, and this is sheerly because of the growth rate. There are more number of consumers, there are less number of products, and there is this supply and demand gap, and thus automatically the growth is pushing inflation. Now this topic is not about inflation, but I wanted to give you a perspective here, really, to tell you what's happening with different economies. So with that, and that's number one. Number two is this picture. If you remember, this is Henry Ford's uh, great Model T car, and this model was one of the most sold models in 1920s. And how was this model made? This model was made in an assembly line, and in an assembly line, what Henry Ford did was he created a set of workers, and he told them that everybody has to do a job, and he has to do that specific job, and that's about it. So he is operating as a machine and doing a very small specific segment of the job. So example, somebody is fixing the steering wheel, he's fixing the steering wheel of the car. That's about it. And he's doing it for the next 20 years or 30 years or as long as he's working for the company. It's very easy to measure him in comparison to somebody else who's doing the same job. But today the workforce is very dynamic. Today the workforce is this. The environments have changed. People are operating in different environments. Somebody is working on computers. They're using their brains. It's no longer a machine which is doing the job. There is, as you see here, there is less. There is more human intervention here, and there is less human intervention in today's world, especially for low-end jobs. So all these jobs are now turning into are run by machines, and all these jobs that you see here are something which machines can't do. Machines can't simply do the kind of math and the complex problems that today's workforce is doing. And to put them all in one bucket is not fair for the employees. But you still need to have a process of evaluating performance. So what do you do? So I would have a few proposals here. I would say leave it to the team leads. Let the team leaders of the smaller groups, 10-member group, 5-member group, decide for themselves what should be the rating of that group. Now, if the team lead decides that everybody in that group is a high performer, let them go ahead and give everybody a high performance rating. And if the team feels that everybody is a low performer, let them give a low performance rating. Now, here's the caveat: you can give everybody a high performance rating, but you have to then also give everybody an equivalent compensation, which means that you have to give your high performance team more compensation in comparison to the rest of the group. Now that's where the trick comes in, and here is the solution. The solution is run teams as small companies. Let them be operating as small entrepreneurs who have a budget for themselves, and they are run independently, and they could have challenges allocating that budget, but they are responsible for it. If there is an issue in the team, that gets risen to the team leads. That gets resolved by the team leads because that's his job. So let him do his job, let him manage the team, let him allocate the budget, and if there is an arbitration required, let that be handled locally rather than moving up the value chain and escalating it to the business head. Allocate fund to the smallest possible team. You got a 5-member team, allocate funds to them. Okay, and let everybody use. Today, technology has reached a stage where you no longer uh, need to have a 180-degree feedback mechanism where the manager gives feedback to the employee and the employee takes that feedback and operates. There are feedback which the manager can take from the other peer set, and there are algorithms which can be developed by the peer set by the technology which can lead an employee to be rated differently vis-a-vis another employee in the same group based on a 360-degree feedback. Now, technology is absolutely available to do all of that, but I think it's also important that uh, the organizations start embracing this change. They start giving more empowerment to the teams at the lowest level and let them run the organization to some extent independently. Now, not they don't have to do everything independently, but to some extent, especially things which are leading with performance, which are leading with budget allocation, they should definitely allocate that to the teams to do it individually. So these are some of the thoughts that I wanted to share with you. I hope you like this video. If you have any further comments on this topic, I would love to hear from them. So I just wanted to leave you with the final thought, which is that everybody is different, and I think it's very important to treat people with different strokes for different folks. So this is a beautiful example of that. There are two groups of people seeing the same picture, but their perception of that picture is very different because of their background, because they've been raised differently, because they've been brought up differently, because they are in different regions, and even if the world is differently seen by different folks, and it is thus important more than ever in today's world to understand the diversity and embrace the diversity and move ahead with that complexity ahead. So with that, thank you very much. Have a great day. Goodbye.